What is up, citizen detectives, antler queens, and secret boyfriends? Welcome to Yellowjackets Buzz. I'm Glenn Rubenstein, joined by NYC Demon Diva Isa, and here we are to talk about episodes 5 and 6 of Yellowjackets. Isa, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to talk about this, and I cannot wait for episode 7. I think episode 6 was probably the biggest, like, oh my god, this needs to like not stop here moment that I've had so far. So I'm like
Wow.
counting down the hours for the new episode to come out.
Oh, no, 5 and 6 were so good. We're going to dive into it and go scene by scene, and we're excited because after this, we're going to be caught up.
Yes.
We are technically caught up with this, so we're not going to have to worry about spoiling anything or theorizing anything because whatever we're talking about today, if you're listening to this and you're only on episode 5 and 6, this is all you know as well. So let's dive right into it. On episode 5, we open with the girls in the cabin dancing to Montel Jordan's This Is How We Do It. They're doing the Running Man, the Bart Simpson. Coach Ben is watching. Like, Isa, this looks like the best summer camp ever, in my opinion.
Doesn't it? Like, what? It was for a second that I was confused. I'm like, is this an illusion? Are they dreaming this? Because why are they having so much fun? Did we forget that we're stranded in a forest after a plane crash and there's no food? It was a little bizarre, but yeah, it doesn't make you realize that they're in such a miserable situation.
I like this. I like seeing the team together and happy despite their circumstances. I think when I think of my favorite TV shows, and I've noticed this is a trend. Breaking Bad did this a lot. It's like when you see the characters you love together having a good time, it almost makes it like more powerful when they're separated or when they're going through like hardship. But it's like these are the moments where you communicate the bond that they have, and in turn, like the audience really gets to see and appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree. And you see them bond and the way that they treat each other and the way that they the way that they fix their conflict before they even go on the trip. You can tell that there's a special bond between these girls. And it shows in this scene.
Absolutely. And I love that Javi's even getting into it and dancing with them. And then, of course, the batteries die. Could you imagine if you were one of the Yellowjackets that does not survive? The last recorded music you ever heard was Montel Jordan's This Is How We Do It.
I can't sing it because we'll get copyright strike. But you know what? It's 1996. That could possibly be somebody's like time witch song. Don't you think? Like if it was if it was 1996, Glenn, what song? I know we already talked about this, but this is a different situation. We're not talking about getting a lullaby to get a bowel movement. Now we're talking about this might be your last song that you listen to. What would you ask for?
Oh, this is tough. In 96. I mean,
yes.
Earlier they referenced Oasis's Wonderwall. Actually, you know what would be nice? Oasis has a song Don't Look Back in Anger. That would be a nice sort of, I mean, it's a very beautiful song. It kind of rocks. It's got nice lyrics. I mean, if I had to think about like deathbed songs from 1996 or sooner, like that would be one that I would feel like, okay, I'd be kind of at peace hearing this really beautiful song with very nice lyrics and a nice message. But, you know, knowing my luck, it would be Snow's Informer, you know, or Vanilla Ice's Ninja Turtles rap. Like, I guess you never, you know, most of us aren't blessed to get to choose the last song that we ever hear. So I guess Montel Jordan's This Is How We Do It is probably as good as any. I mean, maybe if I had my druthers, Nate Dogg and Warren G's Regulate, you know, might be a little higher up there on the list. I don't know. What about you?
Listen, I'm gonna tell you this right now, and it's out of the air. It's gonna be out of our podcast, and if something happens to me, you better make sure that Frank Sinatra's "My Way" is played for me.
See, but again, that's
a beautiful song, and it makes sense. What?
That's poignancy. That's having the choice. That's like getting to pick the perfect last song to hear, and it's never gonna be that. You could go through life.
All right, you know what? Fine. Yeah. Then play. This Is How We Do It.
Yes. You know, knowing my luck, if I died in 1996, like I would have just finished listening to Right Said Fred's "I'm Too Sexy," and then
I love that song. I love that song.
It is kind of a jam, and it has a message.
Yes.
You know. But this was great, and in fact, that's why it's funny in the later scene where we see Jackie desperately trying to get the batteries to work, because I think Jackie's having that thought of like, please don't let it be "This Is How We Do It." Be the last song that I ever hear.
It can be that they just want some music because music is a natural escape from reality. The way that you're thinking about this is priceless. Because I didn't. Now you're gonna have me looking at it at this thing completely different when I go back and rewatch for I don't know the 10th time. I watched both of these episodes again today, by the way, so they're fresh in my mind.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I'll tell you,
Yeah.
it's interesting because you think about if you're stuck in the woods, man, if I go down in a plane crash, please let somebody have brought a guitar. Please let somebody be able to sing. Please let somebody be able to recreate movies.
Be the Jackie. If we're on a let's say a wrestling Inc. trip, right?
Yeah.
Like let's say this is the crew that we usually like hang out with and podcast with. I will 1000% be the Jackie. I'm not an outdoor kind of girl, which is funny because I want to go on Survivor, which is the more outdoorsy show there is. But That's why. It's because I'm the least outdoor person there is. I'm a city girl, always been, and yeah, I will be a mess.
Yeah. I don't know what I would contribute random trivia and things I've picked up from TV and movies. And it would be like, I think this
that I can do.
Yeah.
I'll be making puzzles out of like tree branches and making like people try to figure out these puzzles or whatever, but none of the survival instinct stuff. We're dead. If you count on me.
And I understand it, believe me. And I like seeing the different things that they're trying to do to survive. But we go to the scene of the next morning, and already one of the most iconic scenes in the show. Coach Ben is asleep, but part of him is awake, and Misty comes in, and we get that moment where she is just eyes fixated on Coach Ben's morning man reaction that he's having. She goes out like she's going to touch it. Coach Ben wakes up and is just like, "What are you doing? Get away from me."
What a moment. It was the whole thing was awkwardly hilarious. The Coach Ben's reaction, though, bless his heart, he's so scared, but yet I don't know how to describe his reaction to Misty because I feel like he needs her, but yet he's terrified of her.
Yeah, and really that plays itself out in this episode quite well, the way they explain that. We also learn that all of the girls' menstrual cycles have synced up completely, and everyone is experiencing their period at the same time in the woods.
Yes, this is a known thing that happened to females when they get close or when they spend too much time together. So I actually love that they paid attention to that detail and included it in because that does happen and it's hilarious. Everybody's always in a bad mood or crampy or you know how it is. You're married.
I've been around women before. It's interesting to see Travis's reaction. We'll talk more about that. But I like that they're not sugarcoating it or glossing over it or just saying like, oh my God, everyone has their period. It's like, no, we see that they've made makeshift, menstrual pads. They're boiling them and reusing them, cooking it right next to breakfast. Apparently Travis almost made the mistake of taking his breakfast out of the wrong pot. This is as real as it gets in how they're depicting this.
And you need this kind of realness in this kind of shows. Otherwise, it doesn't make it real. You mean to tell me that a team of girls get lost in the woods for 19 months and we're not gonna mention that aspect of it? You kind of have to, and I'm glad that they brought it up right away.
Yeah, I think that this is not. As we said, this is not the worst depiction that we've ever seen of people struggling, but I feel like they're keeping it pretty real. And also coming up with explanations for things. We see them doing their laundry. We see that the cabin was well stocked enough that they're able to have some comforts, but they're definitely roughing it. And Jackie is faring the worst of all. She's being seen as not contributing. They essentially say, go get some water, make yourself useful in all this. Now, we do see an exchange with her and Shauna where Shauna says that her period has not come. She is late. And Jackie, again, referencing, oh, thank God you're a virgin or else we'd have something to worry about. Again, underlining
awkward.
Yes, awkward.
What an awkward moment. And I can only imagine what Shauna's feeling. Like this whole thing has to be putting her in such a draining, and what we find out, obviously that she's expecting, and it's just like the stress and what they say the first 3 months are like, and now she's dealing with all this on top of that, hiding this secret from her best friend. I can't even begin to imagine the stress that she's on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's insane. And then she has to keep the secret that it's her best friend's boyfriend that got her pregnant, as we saw in the first episode.
Yeah, and Jackie's just so nice to her, and I'm just like,
I
you
mean,
know?
we'll talk about this a little more in
Yeah.
as we get into episode 6, but is Jackie that nice to Shauna? Because I think that going through my eyes as a teenager, I think their relationship is very normal. When I view it as an adult, I do think Jackie could be a little guilty of sidekicking Shauna, and
Right.
putting her in the more submissive role of I'm the pretty popular one, but you're my support system. You're my best friend. Like there's a little bit, I think, of a hierarchy within their two-person relationship.
Agree, but I really do think that Jackie is that's just the way that she is, and she knows that Shauna accepts her just that way, and she's appreciative of that. I can see that. I think everybody as a teenager had that friend that you love and adore, even though they were kind of jerks. You still kind of stood up for them, and I see that in their relationship.
Yeah, well, we cut them to present day.
I do think in the woods, Jackie becomes nicer to Shauna than she was when they were in
Oh,
normal, regular life. What we saw them outside of the woods.
and I could see that. Yeah, I mean, she doesn't quite have the same. Jackie's ego is not being boosted by this experience. Jackie is actually being quite humbled by this experience, given that even she probably feels like she's not contributing as much. So we cut to
Right.
present day. Shauna is distracted. She burns the toast because she's texting with Adam, who very much wants to see her and make plans with her. Shauna's daughter, Callie, says, "Hey, I'm going to the city tonight. There's going to be an Uber charge." Basically, more tells her mom than asks. And then after she leaves, Jeff and Shauna are having a discussion about Callie's behavior. Shauna's making clear she's going to book club. Jeff wants to come to book club. You get a little bit of that, is he almost, I don't think he's full on paranoid, but I think that he wants to reassure himself there's nothing to worry about when he
Right.
suggests he go to book
Right.
club as well.
Right. I want us to name this episode "The Girl on the Train Window," which is the clearly made up book that Shauna
And I
that she
got
was
that
reading at book club.
immediately, because aren't those both Gillian Flynn novels, The Girl on the Train and The Girl in the Window?
Yes.
So good.
Yes, they are. I thought that was funny the way she just mixed the two together and just came up with that title, just pulled it right out of her butt when she needed to. It was great.
And I feel like Shauna, it's funny, Gone Girl, I think, is such an underrated film. I think that it's
Oh
so
yeah.
interesting what they did with that movie and the way that it speaks towards gender dynamics, relationships dynamics. I think Shauna's reference here tells us a little bit about how Shauna sees herself, and maybe
Yes.
uses some of those behaviors to justify her behavior in cheating on her husband and the way she's navigating her complicated life. I feel like she relates very much to those characters.
Agreed. Great, excellent comparison actually, and I do agree that movie is so underrated. Such a good film.
It is interesting too. I wonder if that is sort of like a Gen X or older thing. Is I think that I've been guilty of this. I think sometimes we see behaviors of characters in fiction, characters that we relate to, characters that we identify with, and we almost use some of their behavior to justify our behavior in life.
Right. Right. Yes. Yes. I found myself comparing myself to a fictional character on multiple occasions. You know what I mean? That it's
Oh
just
yeah.
why am I doing this? Like this character doesn't actually exist, but because of the way that they behave, you compare yourself to that. So yeah, I can see that.
Well, and think about how 70s, 80s, 90s, as TV and movies especially became more of an imbalance towards how we were consuming things, how our lives started to revolve more around these fictional characters. I mean, I think back now and I cringe a little bit as a child where it was like something like Ferris Bueller, and it would be like, well, it's okay to skip school, or it's okay to try and do this or feel like I'm doing this because this character that I loved and admired, probably in a way that he shouldn't have been admired, these almost
Right.
become our weird sort of role models for our worst instincts. And sometimes.
Yes. Yes, and they teach you things that you shouldn't be doing, but you just defend them because this person on TV did them. Especially back then when there was not, I don't know, I feel like characters were portrayed differently back then than they are now. So yeah.
Yeah. No, and we cut to Natalie, who's getting the toxicology report from Kevin. It's clean, and then Kevin asked Natalie out. And if it was not clear in the last episode, was Natalie using Kevin? Like, Natalie ain't got no interest in setting up a date with Kevin.
Sorry, Glenn. I'm getting another call. I gotta go. The worst and lamest way to end a phone call in a conversation you don't want to be a part of.
Oh, well, okay. Who's worse, though, in how Natalie sees them? Kevin, who said the toxicology report on Travis was clean, there was nothing in his system, or then Misty, who then when Natalie goes to call Misty, is listed under her phone under D for don't pick up.
Yeah. The amount of toxic relationships in this show is ridiculous. We should be keeping track of them, actually.
Oh my God, it is.
Toxic relationships and friendships. Like, it's hard to keep track of because there's way too many.
And she's contacting Misty because Misty knows a guy that can hack emails, and Natalie wants to hack into Kevin's email to get the complete report. Now we go to Misty. It is Halloween in present day. Misty at the old folks home. It's Halloween. Oh my God, I love this scene so much. If I could marry a scene from Yellowjackets, it would be this scene where one of the children.
This is what you will marry?
Oh, this scene was so well. Actually, there's another scene in this episode.
It is great.
There's another scene in this episode which actually might have stolen my heart a little bit more, and we'll get to that.
Okay,
but
I
this
can't wait
scene
to hear it.
Where the kids are trick-or-treating, one dressed as a mermaid, the other dressed as a doctor. They come into where there's a woman on life support and monitoring systems to get candy from Misty. Misty sees the kids as a doctor. Misty puts her foot down to the power cord, turns off the power on the monitoring system, causing a flat line, and then says, "Doctor, doctor, we need help," and grabs the child, who then runs out of there as quickly as possible. Misty looking so satisfied with herself. How can you watch this and not say Misty is the best character on all of television right now?
I mean, this scene was perfect. And then how did she end it? She says, "I guess it's a trick," or "trick, I guess," instead of "treat." Oh my God. It was perfect. Yeah. I was not expecting this to go there. It was hilarious. It was a great scene. Probably one of my favorite moments in the show as well. I don't think this is the scene that I will marry, but it's up there for me right now.
Oh, this is a scene I could settle down with. I'm just saying. You know, in a game of F, Marry, Kill, maybe the scene later in the episode is the one that I would F, because it is that
we
good.
should do F, Marry, Kill scenes at the end of each episode. But then, you know what? Since it's Yellowjackets we're talking about, Kill should be the good one. Like, Kill should be our favorite.
There you go. Well, this is
Marry should be our least favorite.
Well, this scene is diabolical. We flash back, and then Shauna is dipping a piece of white cloth in deer's blood.
Yeah.
To fake her period, and then present day we've got Taissa with her wife. Taissa thinks there's a wolf outside and goes full Liam Neeson and Taken, grabs a letter opener and goes out to deal with the wolf that she sees, and then finds that somebody has written "spill," which is her opponent in her Senate campaign, has written "spill" in red paint on her door.
Yes.
Oh, Taissa. I feel like Taissa's life, I'm granted it's politics, but just everything she's dealing with is just like so stressful to me.
And I mean, when we get to episode 6, we'll talk more about Taissa, but I feel like we see the trauma, and we'll get to it, from Taissa a lot more than the other survivors. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It just makes her so captivating, which is why I told you I think she's my favorite character, which is probably a very unpopular opinion.
I think with Taissa, this might be weird, but it's like, because there's the unknown there, right? It's like, okay, with Natalie, we know what Natalie has been through. We've seen a lot of what Natalie's been through. We understand she's had a hard road. With Misty, even though Misty is perhaps the most unhinged of the characters, we see what she's been through. Shauna, we understand she's been through. With Taissa, I think because they haven't fully explained perhaps the generational trauma that she's dealing with her grandmother, with herself, with her child, I think maybe that is why it's the scariest, is because it's one we don't understand.
But there's also, we already know, and it's been established, that Taissa would do anything to get what she wants. She's reckless. She destroy that girl's leg, and she wanted to already stop her before she took matters into her own hands. So, and now, we'll get to it again, but she's speaking about going out there and finding help. Like, there's such a reckless, when I saw that scene earlier on in the other episode, when she kicked that girl and destroyed her to not go to nationals with them, that's when I knew there was so much more to this character. She's evil, and they're not telling us to what extent she is, but she
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Well, in the woods, we see Shauna trying to help Jackie, teaching her how to butcher and get the meat off of a deer, which Jackie is not having. Look, I've been vegan for 20 years. I really worry how it would fare in the woods, but look, if this is what it came down to, like, I'm surviving. I do what it took to survive. That's my own personal line in this. It's like, if I gotta debone a deer, so be it.
You wouldn't go look for berries.
I think I would choose wrong. See, this is where it's terrible, because I know that deer meat's not going to poison me, or fish isn't going to poison me, but a berry might, or a mushroom might,
Yeah, I see your point. I guess I can see why you would say I will do what it takes. I guess you're in the woods. What else are you gonna do?
And maybe, I mean, honestly, maybe bugs. Like, bugs are gross, but I wouldn't feel as
Oh,
bad. I don't know.
I don't know. My mom is obsessed with that show, like Naked and Survivor or something. Like they put these naked people in the woods for like 20 days, and they have to survive, and they start killing all these random animals. And I will probably will go vegan if I'm lost in the woods. I'll be the opposite from you. Probably
If
just
there's an
eating grass.
option, if eating grass will work. What I haven't heard mentioned, but I guess from Bear Grylls, I guess pine cones. I guess pine cones and pine nuts
Oh,
are like, that's
yeah.
a super good source. So present day, the Taissa mystery deepens, where she finds the red paint underneath her son Sammy's bed
Yes.
and accuses him. Then we go to Adam and Shauna at the club. And this was interesting, pointed out on Reddit, when they're going into the club, where Shauna feels like, I'm not cool enough to be here. Why are you bringing me to a place with all these people much younger than us? Adam goes to give Shauna a mask. And what's interesting, I don't know if you noticed this, Shauna puts on the mask for a second and then is like, no. People have pointed out, well, maybe after her time as part of the Antler Queen party and everything they dealt with wearing masks in the woods for cannibalism, maybe Shauna has a very negative association with wearing a mask.
I didn't think about that, and I did read a little bit of this. I got I got more into the conspiracies now that I'm all caught up. But she mentioned, and she makes this reference, which I chuckle. She said, "I look like I just got off of a 50 Shades of Grey bus tour." And when she said that, I saw it, and I just don't see Shauna being. I like the idea of her being traumatized by math. I just don't see her as the person that would just parade that idea around. She always just seems so herself that what, if she's gonna do something, she's gonna do it. The mask did look like some kind of 50 Shades of Grey something.
And she experiences something that I know for Generation X, for my generation, we've all experienced, of going to the thing that we feel not at first, we feel at first like is okay, and then we have this realization of like, oh, I'm way too old to be here. I could be
Yes.
somebody's parent. I had the experience with my wife, probably one of our it was actually Halloween, and it was in Brooklyn. It was probably one of the worst Halloween. I had a good time, but I understand why my wife didn't. We went to see this band, Charlie Bliss, that was covering the Josie and the
Hmm.
Pussycat soundtrack, which I love. This was back in 2016. And I sought it out because I was just like, oh my God, I love the Josie and the Pussycat soundtrack. I heard of Charlie Bliss. We went there, and we went to essentially what was like a house party, like this venue that, off in Brooklyn, like way out an industrial section. We both get in there and it's
Yeah.
like, oh my God, we're old enough to be somebody's parents. Like,
Yes.
I stayed, but it was a very weird. I took video of the show, so Charlie Bliss actually released the video I sent to them that I shot on my phone of their Josie set. But the whole time I was like, oh my God, we are old enough. Like, we look like we're here to pick up our kids.
Yeah, yeah. No, we all been in that situation. I've been there myself. And the funny part is that I feel like she already felt like she stood out so much because of, her outfit, her looks compared. She said everybody's so naked. Those were her words.
Yeah.
Then I feel like she's already going to be drawing attention to herself in her mind. Most of us don't pay attention to the people around us nowadays. But I think like she probably felt like the mask would just automatically make everybody stop and stare at her.
Oh, yeah, it's quite possibly true. Well, we see some good scenes of Travis and Natalie hunting together back in '96, and I
Hmm.
think this scene is very interesting, and we'll talk about what happens in episode 6. But I think this is interesting how Natalie is like making Travis less of a dick, and I think
Yeah.
giving him more sensitivity to the situation. There, he's making fun of like, oh, your menses are gonna scare off the wildlife. I mean, it's like, dude, like, here's the thing. Even if, to famously quote a Kids in the Hall sketch, even if you're not a guy with a good attitude towards menstruation, like, well, shit, you better be if you're like one of 3 men.
Yeah, don't joke about it. It's like you
Like,
men don't have to deal with it, and I don't mean to you men, you, but
no,
it's
no,
just
no,
like
no.
don't make jokes about it. Like, do you realize how miserable it is to go through that every freaking month? Like, we don't need you to remind us how miserable it is. I love there's a couple of moments that she really stands up to Travis in a good way, almost like educating him of
Mhm.
certain things, and I really, really enjoyed that aspect of their relationship because you could just tell that Travis maybe just wasn't that knowledgeable, was just saying things to say it, and she made him see it so differently. And I love, how she kind of like turned around, educated him. And again, I shared this with you in the last episode. It's kind of painful to see the relationship evolve because we already know what the fate of
I
Travis
know.
is. So the more that you see them and the more that you start falling in love with the two of them together, it's just kind of like gives you a little bit of a heartache because you already know what Nat is going through right now, trying to figure out what happened to him.
And credit to the writers. I feel like, we grow up in such a society of gender norms. And I think that a lot of the more toxic male bullshit comes from younger men being around older men who have these antiquated attitudes that are just downright shitty, and sexist,
Yep.
in a multitude of ways. And I think that in my life, it did take really strong women and really strong female friendships, and relationships, that pushback for a guy is what evolves you and gets that shittiness out of your system, and you start to really see it as the antiquated bullshit it is. And I love how they're portraying that. Like,
Yes.
this is so true to life
Yes.
from my experiences.
Yes, I
um
love that you just brought that up because it's so on point. Yes. And I love that you were able to be open minded and learn from your friends and female relationships that you had in your life.
I think that's the thing. It is like, if I look at, where you feel like you were born too late or born too soon. I mean, I really have to commend the younger generations with their views on gender,
Yeah.
sexuality, and just not conforming to these antiquated ideals. That's something that I'm very uh, like envious of. I wish I'd been born into a more open and fluid system rather than the one that I
Yes.
was, which was such a holdover.
Yes.
So big plot development in that Misty, when she goes to pick up Natalie for their hacker contact, brings an aromatic diffuser that looks like an owl. We'll talk about this later in
Beautiful.
the episode. But yes,
Yes.
beware of Misty bearing gifts. Um, Sammy is going through his Halloween candy. Taissa and her wife accuse him of the paint. Sammy, of course, denies everything. Sammy saying, "Hey, it's the lady in the tree, Mom. It's all the lady in the tree." Um, if I were a
The
child
lady
watching
in the
this,
tree.
that would be my excuse for everything going forward. You didn't do your homework. It was the lady in the tree. I would just, get
Listen,
me.
I'm staying with my mom in the countryside of Puerto Rico. I'm blaming the lady or whatever is on the trees for everything.
We see Natalie and Misty siphoning gas. They go in to meet the hacker contact, and the hacker's a little kind of stereotypical male nerd, but okay, whatever. Hacker's freaked out because it's a policeman's email that he hacked into. He wants in on whatever they're doing to get the file, and
Yeah.
Misty proceeds to pour the gasoline over him. Natalie threatens to light him on fire, and he gives over the file very quickly, says, "You're crazy." And then Natalie has to get the line in when they're leaving, saying, "You two should date. You have so much in common," to Misty.
I think it happened earlier in the episode, but there was like the perfect line when Natalie's trying to get how does Misty have this contact? And I think Misty says, or she says, who is this guy? And Misty says, oh, I don't know. We only know each other by our citizen detective handles, chat handles. Oh my God, what a perfect. I just love Misty so much.
Well,
She has this contact that she really doesn't really have.
it is funny though. I mean, when you think about it, okay, so for me, not as much. I made a conscious decision for most of my media stuff just to use my name because I'd written under my name. Like it just, it made sense. But I do think there was a time, especially when chat room handles, or I mean, even in your case, like a Twitter handle, like your online name can almost become your identity more than your real name. So it is very interesting to sort of see how this plays into the storyline.
Yeah, it's funny because I personally did it just because I had a corporate job when I started like creating content and it was around wrestling and I wanted to separate that from, me having fun talking about wrestling and sports and other things clearly like we're doing now. So that's where the whole Demon Diva thing came out. But it's just funny because now even people in my normal everyday life call me Demon Diva and I'm like, can you stop? Like it's creepy. I'm Isa, but I never thought that it would take on a whole thing of its own, but it did. So that is how it goes. But oh my God, like your 1990s handles, we were just talking about that. Me and my best friend were talking about our MSN Messenger handles or emails. Like my first email was like Jezebel hot like fire at hotmail.com, and I thought that was the shit. Come on, you had it. What was yours?
Oh, I'm trying to remember. I mean, there were like stupid ones where it was like vid game guy or, just like things where,
Yeah.
yeah, it could get bad. I mean, so my really bad one that I came up with that I used this when I was in my band and we had a hip hop influence in my MC name was same as my screen name is like G-Man. Oh, I still cringe when people try and bring that up or call me that or things like that.
Oh man, I'm gonna change you on my contact. I'm gonna make
G-Man.
you G-Man on my contact. Yes.
The better one, my partner in hip hop at the time, Jeff Gersman, chose. There was a sign that we would see on the freeway for a company called US Pipe, and he chose that as his hip hop name, and it was US Pipe that he said stood for Ulysses S. Pipe. I was like, okay, that's much more creative than I am,
From the sign on the freeway.
From the
Is
sign
creative.
on the freeway. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Hey, there were worse influences. This made me so happy. Van and Taissa, their relationship. We'd seen them exchange meaningful glances, but it is on and it is happening. And
yes.
Yeah, like it's just so nice to see this portrayal of their relationship. And did you get the impression this had been going on before the crash?
Yes. Yes. I think I thought so. I don't know if we'll find out more or not, but I definitely thought that this wasn't a first time we are experimenting out here in the woods kind of thing. It seemed very evolved and very caring of each other than for it to have just started now.
No,
you know what I
great.
mean? Where with Nat and Travis, we're seeing them evolve and getting to each other because of the situation that they're in. Here, it just feels like they have a deeper connection that must have gone on before the crash.
And it is interesting because you look at it by today's standard and you just say, well, this is completely normal. I mean, you look at how they treat Taissa and her wife, you go, that's completely normal. And then you almost have to remind yourself, oh, they're sneaking around because it was 1996 and people were still not as universally cool or accepting or open as they are now.
Which Van makes a reference saying what when she asked her to lower her voice, asked her to lower her voice. Van asked what you're afraid of, what people are going to think. And Taissa very unapologetically herself says, no, I just don't want the drama. I agree. You're already out there. There's already a lot of drama going on. Why bring this into everything else going on? I don't think that Taissa was ever embarrassed or afraid to, admit who she is.
Yeah, and it's very interesting to me because I spent part of my youth growing up in Michigan and seeing like what the attitudes were there, and then we moved before that and after that in the Bay Area in Northern California, and
Mhm.
it's like it's just almost a reminder that it's like, but even there, it was not as like universally accepted to be out, with who you are, and yeah, it's interesting to see how they're playing that, and I like seeing that this relationship develops. We then go back to present day where Shauna thinks she sees Jackie. So we have another Jackie ghost sighting, goes to follow her. And this was interesting that it turns out when Shauna follows her, it is her daughter, Callie, who is wearing Jackie's uniform that she stole from her
Yeah.
mom, Shauna, out of her closet. We find out that Jackie's parents gave it to Shauna on what would have been Jackie's 40th birthday.
Yeah.
Um, what do you make of this? I mean, first off, of all the clubs in the world, what are the odds that
The-
Adam takes Shauna to the one that her daughter is at?
I mean, the same odds of him being at the same hotel she was at, but hey, I'm suspicious of everyone. Um, isn't that every teenage kid's like biggest nightmare to get caught in the club or whatever party where you're doing illegal things by your parent? I related so much to Callie here where I was like, oh no, I remember I never been in that situation. Well, my older sister, which she used to extortion me for the longest time when she caught me doing things I shouldn't because, she would like use it against me. But never by my parent. But that is such a fear. I'm sorry. I feel bad for her.
Well, and then every parent's fear when you're having an affair that you're going to go with your lover, your side piece. You're going to go to the club where your children are. I think cross generational fear. It all makes sense. So Shauna dismisses Adam to talk to her daughter who is tripping on Molly. Now, did you pick up on this? People have speculated that Adam and Callie share a look, and Callie perhaps even nods at Adam in a way that might suggest there is some connection between them.
I didn't pick up on that. I read a couple of things speculating about it. I personally didn't pick up on it, and I just rewatched it, and I still didn't see a connection there that will make me think there's something, not between the two of them, but not or anything like that. I personally didn't see it. I
Almost.
think that what I saw between the two of them was more of a Kylie being shocked, like that. This is not anything close to the behavior she would expect her mom to act like. That's what I got out of that. Like, why are you in the club? Who is this young guy you're with? That's what I got out of that moment.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk
And
more
am
because
I hallucinating? She was probably thinking she was hallucinating because she's tripping on
that's
Molly.
true.
So
We cut from this to Taissa talking to her wife and essentially talking about the toll this is taking. Taissa is going to drop out of the campaign, given the toll this is taking on her family. And then Misty giving Coach some tea. Okay.
oh, it's so awkward.
It is so awkward. And then Jackie's in the attic where there are the symbols, the haunted attic that everyone except for Van and Sean are afraid to sleep in. People are afraid of the spirit in the attic. And Jackie, like, I mean, this I think maybe tells you everything you need to know about the character of Jackie, where it's like, hey, everybody, I've got a great idea. Let's have a seance.
Yes.
This was the point where my wife looked at me and was like, yeah, I'm killing and eating her first.
oh my goodness. no, because I personally will be the one trying to do the science. I will be the one saying, let's invoke some spirit.
Oh, you'd be having
That
the
would be me.
seance. There would be no need for Jackie to come up with the idea. I think you are
No, no,
very in tune.
I would already be like BFF with the ghost at
Yeah.
this point. So yeah, but I thought it was funny because I was like, why didn't anybody think of it before?
Yes. But this is what Jackie thinks she contributes to the group. Let's have a seance.
hey, listen, it was all fun and games until
Yeah, that's true. We get more flashbacks with Nat and Travis and their hunting. We then get Natalie present day with Misty looking through the files about Travis's death. Okay, so what do you think of this? Misty, was it almost too fast how she noticed the symbol on the floor, put the photos of the floor together, and drew the symbol from the woods, from the trees in the cabin? I mean, do you think something more was up than just Misty making a brilliant observation that somebody drew that symbol, laid out candles, and did that where Travis was killed?
Yes, I think maybe she already had the file before. I don't know. I think there's something more here. I don't think she could come up with that just that fast, the way that it was portrayed in the show.
Yeah, this is probably my first tip off to like maybe Misty's up to more than we know.
Right.
Then we go to the seance and blood and dirt, deer blood and dirt being put in X's on everyone's foreheads. Like, let me ask you this: can you do a seance during the day? Maybe at a less creepy, scary time of day, perhaps?
No, it's not the same. You don't get the same effect from it.
You need to be scared.
Yeah, and there are certain times of the day where you are more likely to get in tune with a ghost or a spirit. This has been proven.
Yes. Asking questions about classmates. Misty wants to know if her crush has the same feelings in return, which is answered yes. Javi coming up and bumming everyone out, saying, "Are we going to survive all this?"
What? He killed the vibe. He killed the vibe real quick.
We cut downstairs to where Laura Lee is reading the plane manual for the Cessna. Tai, who is not participating in the seance, says, "Don't even think about flying that." And Laura Lee puts out that her grandfather, who could barely read or write, could fly a Cessna. How hard could it be? Perhaps foreshadowing some developments that will be happening.
Right.
Tai does go upstairs. Coach Ben is downstairs as well, drinking the tea that Misty gave him. And then we get, oh man, the big moment where Lottie appears possessed. All the candles are blown out. So with this seance, hey, if they're raising a spirit, it appears to be working. The candles are blown out. Lottie starts speaking in French, everyone's pointing out, it's like, she didn't speak French, but she's saying like it wants blood. It's already inside you, to Shauna. I mean, okay, you like the occult in these sort of scenes. How did this rank for you in terms of overall creepiness and foreboding?
I thought they did a good job. They didn't overdo it with the creepy factor, and because of Lottie just being straight up weird, it just worked that it was her the one delivering the message. And there was a little bit of a humor when they were trying to get Jackie to like translate, when Jackie was like, "I suck at French too." So I thought it was a good balance between everything going on. I liked it.
Well, and we'll talk more about Lottie as we get into episode 6 and her backstory. We have seen that she was on medication. It appears as if she's off it now, and we will talk more about how that factors in. But this is the confirmation. Lottie has had these bad feelings. Now there is something else there with them, perhaps, that wants blood, is already inside Shauna.
Yes.
Like, this is laying, I think, a big development on the supernatural elements of this show.
Right. Yes.
We then, if Lottie is possessed, Laura Lee goes upstairs with the Bible, trying to get the devil out of her. And when prayers and all other language fails, just throw the Bible at someone, and apparently they'll snap right out of the possession.
The Exorcist priest, should I try that, man?
Sir, I love that. That was just such a great, fun little detail. I mean, the show clearly has a very good sense of humor. Was so good.
Would you not done that?
Throw the when all else fails, throw the Bible.
That. I would have probably 1000%, or knock them out.
And speaking of exorcisms and The Exorcist, then Coach Ben just starts like projectile vomiting after drinking the tea that Misty gave him that was making him not feel so well.
Yeah, because she's probably poisoning him.
Yes.
My theory.
Well, okay, so Tai in present day is ready to end the campaign. She has a vision of the wolf, the vision of the man with no eyes, and decides that I am not dropping out of this campaign, reveals the bullying messages that were painted on her doorstep, and is more determined than ever to stay in. Seeming like, this kind of goes on what you said earlier. You said it was a very good point where you said, Ty has this strength. And I think what we see here, similar to what we saw on the soccer field with Allie in the first episode, we see that when Ty feels like she's being pushed or at risk of losing something, like this is 100% the person you want on your side because she has this strength that is just unparalleled.
Yes, and I love this thing, and it was weird because I felt very 50-50. I felt bad for her family, her wife and Sammy, because they're like sitting there thinking she's gonna quit the campaign and come be with the family, come be a mom again. But I can relate to her saying, no, I'm not gonna let this bullying or this dark past of mine that keeps haunting me stop me from what I'm trying to accomplish. Because we do get to I feel like we learned that she's running because she's trying to change things and do the right thing and just put something new out there. And in politics, that's important too. But, I felt weird because I thought this was such a boss moment of her, like kind of like having that strength. But at the same time, it's like, oh, you're going to be in the doghouse now, you're going to be sleeping with the wolves tonight.
No, absolutely. And this is then presented back to back with Coach Ben confronting Misty saying, you tried to poison me. And Misty's response is to start saying, I have these feelings. And it's like, okay, girl, first off, if someone's trying to poison you, and you want to have a conversation about something, like, it's not like she's trying to justify it. Like, well, you don't understand I have these feelings for you and you don't like me, so I thought I would murder you. Like, interesting place her brain goes.
Didn't you ever meet the kid in school that would, like, beat up the girl or the boy that they like because they didn't know how to express their love? Maybe that's what's going on with Misty here. Maybe this is her way of trying to express her love for him
through poisonous mushrooms. But okay, here's the crazy shit though. Coach Ben in the moment has to make a decision. It appears like, what is he going to do? He could try and give her the talk of like, I don't feel this way about you. This would never work. He could try and give that talk of just like we talked about before, when you have the awkward crush on someone much too old for you and they need to kind of like pat you on the head and bring you back down to earth and say like, you'll find somebody your age one day. You'll be happy. But Coach Ben decides to go in a 180-degree different direction and say, I have feelings for you as well, but I couldn't live with myself if this happened. I'm your coach. It's inappropriate. It's against the law. Giving her these reasons of saying, I feel the same thing for you, but I just can't act on it. We have to keep this a secret.
Yeah, I was very shocked by this development because like he just seems so against her and terrified of her at the same time that I didn't think he was having those feelings. So this threw me on a loop. I will say that I wasn't expecting him to say, yeah, I like you too. Like I was like, what? Like he's making your life a living hell right now.
Yeah, this is like an interesting third way. And I'm surprised, and like this is obviously like the worst decision probably in the long run that Coach Ben could have made. But most shows would do one of two things. They would either have him give the speech, like it's not right, it's not okay, I'm too old, I don't see you that way, you're my student. We've heard it before. Or they could go the other way and have Coach Ben be like, hey, we're out in the woods, and just Coach Ben decides to become a scumbag and just go for it, because he's, a male with bad instincts and bad impulse control, doing something that's criminal in a situation where,
with him being so injured, with him being so injured, you can go in that direction of him, like really fully going for his feelings other than just expressing them. He's like dying, So I wonder if he didn't have his leg amputated, and I know that's not part of the story, but maybe it would have gone in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we see a little bit in the next episode, maybe another little shade of Coach Ben. But this is like, I think in the long run, this is going to end up being a very, very bad decision for him, given that it is universally accepted that Coach Ben is lying here to get Misty to stop poisoning him.
Yes. I mean, good point. Okay, I see that.
if he
That
would
makes
have,
all the sense, actually. Now you got me thinking, because he's like, he's trying to survive. He knows that she's trying to kill him, so why not say apologies for the fireworks outside if you hear them? But why not just say that, hey, I like you too, so maybe she stops and doesn't finish killing him? Yes.
I mean, because I'm thinking about this now, he could have told the other teammates and be like, look, Misty has these feelings for me that ain't happening, but she's trying to poison me. Can somebody please deal with her, talk to her? Like, we need to do something as a group. Like, that would have been messy in other ways, but I think that maybe that would have been the most responsible choice. Instead, he is feeding and fueling her fantasy, which I'm just going to put out there now is probably not going to work out for him best in the long run. And I don't need spoilers or anyone to tell me anything. I'm just assuming Coach Ben,
yes,
is not long for this world.
Maybe no, I mean, he's already not in the best shape and the most injured out of all of them. So no, I agree with you on that. Yeah.
So present day, we had seen Shauna actually have some really nice bonding moments with Callie the night before. They were talking about things. I mean, it was like almost beautiful how they make Callie seem like such a terrible person given what happens next. Because it really seemed like her and her mom were gaining ground. So the next morning, Callie tries to just blow up things with her mom and blackmail her mother, saying, I'm going to take Uber rides wherever, and I don't have a curfew. And if you cross me, I know I'm going to tell Dad that you're having an affair. Is Callie the least likable character on this show?
No. No, she's just a teenage girl.
Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, the reporter.
Oh, Jessica Roberts. Jessica Roberts is just doing her job. But okay. So here in the game of F, Marry, Kill, here is the scene that just F's so hard, where in response to this, Shauna, Melanie Linsky, give her all the Emmys and all the awards for this scene, explains to her daughter that say, okay, go ahead and tell Dad, there's $12,000 in your college fund. I wish it was more. That's what's going to cost for us to get divorced. So you're not going to college first and foremost. Second, no one is lonelier in this world than a recent divorcee. So you are going to be spending all your weeks with me and all your weeks with your very lonely father who's going to be depressed post-divorce. And then finally, when he turns it around and takes care of himself, he's going to come to you for dating advice because the women he's going to date are undeniably going to be your age. And he wants your perspective on this. So please go ahead and tell your dad everything, and let's just speed up this process.
What a moment. I clapped when I saw this thing.
This was so
I thought it was so good.
So good. And I know that, sometimes when a writer writes something, they're writing almost like wish fulfillment of oh, this is what I think I could say, but it's very unrealistic. Melanie Linsky is so good that she just makes this so believable that Shauna is this smart, has put this together, and is able to checkmate her daughter.
And the best 100%. Part is, as someone that comes from a divorced household, and my parents divorced around the age that Callie is, she was so on point with everything.
So good.
So I thought, you're going to have people that maybe might be divorced. You might have people that come from a divorced household, and you're going to have so many people relate to that moment in the conversation that if you're Callie, you're going to be like, all right, I'm out. I thought it was perfect. It was super. And the way she delivered the lines. Amazing. She's amazing. She's a great character, and she's playing it so well.
And she does such a good job. She calls Jeff in and says, our daughter wants to tell you something. And then Callie confesses for sneaking out and being on Molly. And this was so and I
the
think
only
about
thing that I didn't like, only thing that I didn't like about Sting, and I'm nitpicking at this point, is that Jeff walked in so fast that it makes you wonder, was he in the next room? Did he hear the whole conversation already? Because he was there in a second.
Yeah.
So that's me just nitpicking.
Oh my God. And I've talked about this before on the other podcast we do. I have I think about what Callie's being threatened with. I think about my parents' divorce in the mid 80s and being like 12 years old, spending my weekend with my father, where he just drove around sulking about things not working out with his new girlfriend, and listening on repeat to Michael Bolton's "How Can We Be Lovers When We Can't Be Friends?" And I'm just sitting there in the car and I'm just like, oh, good Lord, kill me now. Like, they couldn't have stayed together. Like, this is awful. This is absolutely awful. And Callie, that is the world you're in.
Or your dad goes through like a new girlfriend every other month and they want you to meet them and you go in there, you know you're gonna hate them. It's the worst. It's the worst. If I was Callie, I would confess to and I would be like, I don't want no part of that. Let them stay together even though they're miserable.
I will, like, I'll do you one further. My dad would date women that had kids and then would take us all out together on the date.
Oh no. No.
The only saving grace of this is one of the girls was like a year older than me. And one time we were bored and she just started kissing me. And that was like my first real kiss, like when I was like 10 or 11 years old. But aside from that, it was awful.
Oh my God, but this could have been your stepsister.
Well, knowing my dad, I just knew it was a matter of time till he screwed it up.
Okay. So then, fucking get some.
Yeah. I mean, but aside from that, though, it was all just misery. Okay, so Callie did bring up one point to Shauna, though, of saying, like, okay, you're hooking up with this guy. What does he know about you? Because your information is out there. So Shauna Googles herself, and we find out some things from these screenshots, these Google results. One is that, we see universally that all of the survivors wanted privacy. Many have shied away from public life. We see there was a lawsuit against the airplane or the airline that caused the crash. But then we also get an interesting tidbit there in a link to a Yellowjackets subreddit where somebody says, like, hey, are any of the survivors single? Like, because I was kind of near their age. Like, maybe Adam has a thing. Maybe he's had a thing for the Yellowjacket survivors for a long time, and this is all part of his plan.
I mean, maybe, you never know. But I love the attention to detail on the Google search and like the things that they put in there, because I do think that they think about every little detail on this show. I have major respect for how they pay attention to detail. So I was paying attention to every single thing that popped up on that Google search.
And then we get Natalie, who calls Taissa over to share what Misty had found with the symbol. While they are there, two important developments. They both get a text message from an unknown number that says, gather $50,000 in cash and await further instructions. Do not discuss this with your teammates. I will know. And then they drew out the symbol, the triangle head man symbol in ASCII art, which is old school.
Yeah.
And they are discussing this, where then we see, should we tell Misty? Natalie starts like talking some shit about Misty. And then we see that owl diffuser that Misty brought over to Natalie's has a camera hidden in it. And Misty's sitting around with her bird Caligula, literally eating popcorn while spying on her friend.
Amazing. She's so smart. One step ahead of everyone.
It's very interesting. I mean, I'm just going to put this out there as theory. I don't think this is, I don't think anything in episode 6 confirms this, but there is a popular theory. I think people were joking about this at first, but if you look at the Callie Adams situation, there is a theory that Callie or Jeff could have something to do with this blackmail plot. If we go back to that first episode, Shauna's safe. The password's 2525. You could tip that thing over on the ground and everything would come spilling out of it. Jeff's having inventory problems with his business. Callie, we've learned, has no money for college. Maybe it's not so far-fetched that either or both of them, perhaps in cahoots with Adam, could have something to do with this blackmail plot.
I saw a theory about it being Shauna, the one behind everything, just to add more funds to, like Callie's college fund or whatever. But yeah, I've seen a lot of theories about this, and it's something that is probably what's going on. I mean, we'll see. We don't know what's going on. But yeah, I see this theory.
So, episode 6. We open with a flashback to Lottie. Here we are, Isa. We're caught up. We can now speculate about everything because we're not going to spoil anything.
Right.
It's gonna be so bad. Okay, episode 6 is a banger. Like, this is so good. We open with Lottie, and we get this backstory that essentially tells us her parents put her on meds because she was claiming to have visions or premonitions. And we see in this opening scene that she predicts a car accident. And by her freaking out as a child, her parents avoid them getting in the accident. What did you think of this development? And I know we had this debate in an earlier episode. Does this confirm for you the Yellowjackets? I mean, does this episode as a whole, but does this development confirm for you that Yellowjackets is a supernatural show?
Yeah, but I also just felt like she just has like some kind of like a sixth sense, that obviously her parents just try to not act like their daughter have some kind of special natural gift. But yeah, I think it's a little bit between premonition, supernatural, and just like a sixth sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, sixth sense is supernatural. I mean,
yeah.
I think this
but
is
it's not like she's talking to ghosts. She's predicting the future. So it depends on how you see supernatural. I guess she gets possessed too, kind of. But I mean, I think the biggest theory is just that, and I don't know if we're speculating right now or not, but I think the biggest theory is that she's the antler queen. And I think that a lot of people are leaning towards that.
Well, and there were visuals in this episode, and this isn't a spoiler because they don't give anything away, but there are visuals in this episode that definitely have her like in front of the antlers. I mean,
right.
We've talked about this. Like, look, I think Lottie, Shauna, Taissa, Jackie. I mean, we just basically know that it's not Misty, but I think that of the other four, like I think any of them could be the antler queen. And that would be satisfying. Jackie is the most popular. Taissa is the strongest. Shauna as like this sort of emerging leader who I think is going to unseat Jackie at some point. And then Lottie because of her connection to the other world. Like there might be something there. We do. It's interesting though. It's an interesting angle that they're going with this. The idea that her parents almost put her on medication to like suppress her gift, which is and we talked about this. We did talk about in a previous episode. Part of what we I think both love about this series is we show how the main characters are all dealing. I mean, like haunted is kind of a loaded word, but they're all dealing with this baggage, these things that drive them based on their past. I think with Lottie feeling like she has this sixth sense, as you say it, but it's always been seen as something that has to be suppressed by her parents. Like that'll give somebody issues. I mean, if you have ADHD, that will give you issues. Anything that requires like serious medication, especially when you're younger, it's hard to have a feel-good relationship with that.
Right, but if what you have isn't necessarily an illness and it's a natural gift and you're getting it kind of like taken down by medications that you don't need, it's very complicated and it's a lot, especially if it's like a supernatural gift. There's no medication that can really, I mean, there is, but you see where I'm going with this. It's like, because we see her, the longer that she's in the wilderness without her medicines, the more these things start happening to her. So, why didn't her parents just, and we see that scene with the parents arguing about what to do with her. And it's just like the mom feels like she doesn't want to take her to a psychiatrist. She understands that there are things in this world that we can't understand, but it's the dad that keeps pushing to just take her to a psychiatrist. And
yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. It's very interesting. Then we do see Lottie present or in 96 having a vision of the deer with bloody antlers in the woods.
Yes.
Which creepy and definitely will be addressed later in the episode. We then have the credits, and we go to Shauna going to the hotel to meet up with Natalie and Taissa, and essentially deciding like how they're going to deal with the scenario. And there's even talk of like, should we bring Misty in on this? And the team does not, the three of them do not seem interested in doing so.
Yes. I loved Shauna here. Is another part that I feel like she delivers the line so well because she's not aware of anything going on up until this point. And I think she says Blackmail. Something like, when she says something like, is there anything else that I need to know? Or Travis being murdered, you guys doing blackmail, and this one playing buddy cop with Misty. Does that cover it all? And I'm like, damn, they really kept a lot from her.
Absolutely. We see Misty stealing medication and leaving her place of work. We then learn that Shauna and Jeff are going to have lunch with Jackie's parents. They're going to have brunch with Jackie's parents on a weekday.
Oh my God.
To celebrate Jackie's birthday.
Yes.
Oh, and then, okay, what did you think of this dream sequence where the Yellowjackets are in uniform? Misty is Shauna's birth coach. Jackie is there. And Shauna gives birth to a chicken, which then she immediately starts eating.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I couldn't figure out what Misty was holding. I didn't know if it was like a deformed baby, and then you have Jackie like kind of like coaching her through it. And because you don't know at first that this is like a vision, you don't know if you're seeing, what really went on in the woods. And I'm like, does Jackie know? And then she just gives birth to food that she starts eating, and I'm like, oh well, that's disturbing.
There are moments in this show where I'm able to almost have this extreme moment of self-awareness. I don't know if you've had this yet, where there are moments in the show where you think that you've recommended the show to so many people and they're watching it and they're seeing this and they're thinking like, why in the hell did they think I would like this? Like, why did they recommend this show to me? Like, this was one of those moments where I was going on about the show to my mom, telling my mom, like, you gotta check it out. Like, here's my Showtime account. Like, there's moments where I think my mom's gonna be watching this and thinking, like, who did I raise? This is the type of thing they're recommending to me. This was one of those moments.
Yeah, I was watching it with my mom as well, and it was so funny because I'm kind of like letting her know because we're watching it with the Spanish captions, and some of it doesn't translate the right way, so I'm trying to explain things to her. But the concerning thing here is that my mom is like, I think we're on episode 2, and she's like, yeah, this show is right up your alley. And I was like, the fact that my mom knows that I'm into all this dark stuff and she just accepted it at this point, I don't know if that's even more concerning. Like, I want my mom to still worry and say, why do you watch this? But no, she was like, yeah, this looks like something you would enjoy. And I'm like, wow, what kind of person am I?
Yeah, it's very interesting. But then do your parents ever surprise you? Like like my mom was staying with us for a while and she'd be watching like Game of Thrones or Sopranos or something like really bloody and violent. I would just be like, this is the woman that I couldn't watch a movie with that had swearing or nudity, up until the age of 18. No. And now I walk in on you and you're just watching like the most hard R stuff,
No, my dad is the biggest baby when it comes to this kind of stuff. And I remember when The Exorcist was re-released, I told you how much I love that movie.
Yeah.
So you remember when they did that special edition? I think it was maybe in 2007. I can't remember. I know it was re-released, so I made my dad take me to see it. And he got up to refill our popcorn and drinks at least 20 times. And the rest of the time he was just looking down. Like, my dad would not watch anything like that. My mom does like certain things, but not to that extent. No, that I'm the only one. My sister hates it too. I don't know why I'm the only one in this family that's into like dark, sadistic stuff.
Well, we do get a very nice moment with Van and with Ty back in '96 where they're bathing, if not the lake, like one of the ponds or streams nearby. And we do get foreshadowing with Van noticing that Ty's fingernails are very dirty.
Yes, we do get. And she says she has no idea how they got that dirty. And at this point, I am loving the relationship even more, but because we're 6 episodes in and we haven't seen adult Van, I can't help but start speculating. Where does this end?
I think Van early on was a pick for if there's a survivor who's blackmailing them, like it's Van who stayed in the woods off the grid and is just, for whatever reason, trying to draw them back into this. I don't know.
I don't know because Van was also the one that they felt was fine to leave behind to die.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think Van never assumed Van is dead. We've seen twice her escape 2 moments. So
that's a good point. But I don't know. I like the more that I love seeing them together, the more that I can't help but to think, oh my God, we haven't seen Van as an adult yet. What happens here? Do I want to get invested into them as a couple? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm very invested. Taissa goes back and talks to Shauna, and Shauna is, Taissa knows that Shauna is pregnant. Shauna is so afraid of Jackie finding out this, and Jackie then, Shauna then starts talking about terminating the pregnancy, and this whole storyline is so tough to watch, but we can clearly see for her where Jackie finding out about this is perhaps a fate worse than death in her mind. Right. We flash to brunch for Jackie's birthday with Jackie's parents. And yeah, they're a delight.
No. You can definitely see where Jackie gets her putting other people down attitude from.
Oh my God. Now she does, to what we talked about, the theory of what Jeff is up to, she does say that Jeff and Shauna have a very big anniversary coming up soon, which in my mind, Jeff was at that hotel with a party planner planning an anniversary party, and that's going to be the big misunderstanding.
Oh, good one. Okay.
It's possible.
Oh my God, that's a good one, Glenn. I didn't think about that. Okay, yes.
But we have this, I mean, just, oh my God, just, they're offering, I mean, they're really doing everything they can to, like, you even make themselves even better than Shauna and Jeff. Like, oh, we'll pay for Callie's college, like putting them in this subservient position to, I mean, they're just like,
if they weren't such jerks, it would be a nice touch, but they're doing it because they think they're not good enough to be able to afford to send their daughter to college. It's not out of the kindness of their heart.
Well, and I understand, they lost Jackie. We have every assumption that Jackie is not alive in the present day. We don't know when that happened, but yeah, I mean, this is just such a tough scene to watch. And I've known people like this that will do this backwards or backhanded, like, insult, compliments that are really insults. I mean, this was just so tough to watch these scenes.
Yeah, because I feel like they're making it look like it's a nice thing to do, but it's almost like trying to give Shauna survivor's guilt at this point. I feel like they feel like Shauna was not, like, Jackie should have survived and not Shauna.
Yeah, like, and just talking about how smart she was, basically makes it seem like, yeah, Shauna was the sidekick, the wind beneath Jackie's wings, so to speak. You ever really pay attention to the lyrics to "The Wind Beneath My Wings"? Like, I would be very pissed if I was the person that Bette Miller was singing that to.
Right. Yes.
Like,
yes.
You think you're better than me? Like, that's what I'm getting out of this,
Right. Same. I always listen to that song and I'm like, why would anybody even try to sing this song? Like, why are you being so crappy to the person you're singing it to?
That song is one of the most played songs at funerals. Like, it has been since its release. Like, my wife has told me if I were to play that song at my wife's funeral, she will find a way to come back from the netherworld and haunt me and cause my demise. She would take it as that much of an insult.
Tell her to call me and I'll do the science.
See, there you go. So we contrast this with a scene of Jackie and Shauna talking about Jackie's relationship with Jeff. Jackie confirming she's not had sex with Jeff. It's interesting. It's interesting to get this context. And then speaking of which, we see Natalie and Travis about to have sex while they're making out, and or they're making out in this scene, not having sex. But yeah, they're definitely going down that road.
Right.
And then we see what happens later in that episode, but they come back. Everybody assumes they're doing it and saying, like, is this why we don't have any food? Because you guys are too busy exploring each other rather than the wilderness. Jackie starts tossing some shit at Natalie. They get into it. Natalie's saying, you're jealous of me. And then we get Natalie downplaying what's happening, but then Misty says to Natalie, I understand, I have a secret boyfriend too. And I was like, oh my God, this is so going to just blow up in everyone's face so soon.
How do they not know who she's talking about at this point?
But they've made jokes before about her giving him a sponge bath. Like, this is not a news flash to anyone that Misty is really into Coach Ben.
Right.
Taissa is trying to get money out of the bank account to pay the blackmailer, but she can't do it because she doesn't have her wife's consent or signature. Taissa and her wife are talking about taking Sammy to therapy, which we do see play out later in the episode. Okay, big scene, big mythology scene, big where is this all going scene. And I admit I have fully fueled this. I am responsible for helping fuel this fire and the speculation. Shauna goes to Jackie's room and picks up Jackie's journal. Okay, so we see a list of songs Like are Jackie's favorite songs. Now, one of them is by the Spice Girls, Wannabe. Here's what's interesting about this. I tweeted with Ashley, co-creator of the show, some joke about saying, oh, the girls went missing in 96. The biggest tragedy, aside from the cannibalism and the murder, is that they're going to miss out on Spice Mania taking over the US. And then Ashley responded with like, oh, wasn't that in 96? And I was like, oh no, Wannabe didn't hit in the US till early 97. And Ashley said, okay, prepare for a light anachronism in the show. Like there might be something that's out of date. So seeing Wannabe there, when I saw that, I was like, that's what Ashley was talking about. How could Jackie know about the Spice Girls in 96? They weren't even out in the UK till summer of 96. There's no way Jackie could have journaled that. But then we get the bigger potential anachronism, or is it foreshadowing? There are some movies on Jackie's list of favorite movies, like The Craft, that came out later in 96 after they crashed. But the most damning piece of evidence that either was a huge production error or is foreshadowing is that Jackie has a list saying movie characters I would be. First one, Rose Dawson from Titanic. Titanic did not come out till the December of 97. Rose Dawson in Titanic also uses a tragedy to fake her death and assume a new life. So get your thinking caps on there. She also has listed Kat Stratford from 10 Things I Hate About You. That came out in 1999. Mina Savari's character from American Beauty, which came out in 99. But the big one, Torrance Shipman from Bring It On, that came out in August of the year 2000. This is either a huge production error or Jackie survived, came back, and wrote in her journal. Which do you think it is?
Yeah, so originally, before I started going down the list of every song and everything, I was like, okay, so maybe she took the journal with her because they were out there for a while. But I'm like, okay, but how is she seeing these movies or listening to this music, right? My favorite theory out of all this is that she did die in the wilderness, but she's a time traveler. So she comes back and writes in her journal. I did see this in the subreddit. I just want you to know. And I was like, you know what? I just watched Avengers Endgame. There was a lot of time traveling there. So maybe that's why I kind of popped for that. I still think that Jackie didn't survive the wilderness. So I don't know if this is like supernatural Jackie still writing in her journal, because we see Shauna still have conversations with Jackie. So,
So the creators have a 5-year plan for this show. This has I was tweeting out these screenshots. People were posting these screenshots. The first thing I did after I finished the episode was go back and get screenshots of this last Saturday night when the episode premiered, 9 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Pacific. I already had the screenshots posted. So here's my theory how the creators could very easily explain this if it was an error and have it make sense. If Shauna becomes the leader after Jackie dies, and let's say Shauna becomes the Antler Queen, when they return from the wilderness, Shauna, because she clearly has issues with Jackie, she had issues with Jackie in the past, she's carrying a lot of issues with Jackie in the present. I think Shauna feels like she has almost taken over Jackie's life in becoming a leader, in marrying her boyfriend. And I could see Shauna, when they come back, when she goes over to Jackie's parents' house, writing in Jackie's journal, like she's continuing the story.
Yes, I like this theory a lot. That's probably my favorite theory.
And in fact,
especially we know that it's a tradition. They go there every year. At least she goes there every year for her birthday and celebrates with her parents, even though she doesn't want to. So I can see her sitting on Jackie's room, and maybe that's her own little Jackie tradition every year.
And because she has a vision of her and Jackie talking about Jeff before Jackie was dating Jeff, like the journal was something that was important between them. And in fact, Jeff interrupts Shauna when she's in the room present day. How do we know Shauna wasn't going to write a 2021 Jackie journal entry before Jeff interrupted her? Like, I think this 100% makes sense if this is where they're going with the story, whether it was intentional or not. I think Shauna having this, here's a dated reference, a single white female type experience with Jackie kind of makes sense even posthumously.
Yes, I agree. I like the theory of her making that her own little yearly tradition to remember Jackie.
Yeah, it kind of, now we're talking about it more, like this kind of makes sense because this brunch is a tradition for the 40th birthday. They gave the soccer uniform. Okay, so then we follow this with, Jeff standing up for Shauna. like
I
telling
will marry this scene. I would marry this scene. I loved everything about this.
this was, I mean, sweet, but he was saying that like this was happening before Jackie even died. And, I chose to be with Shauna. Like, Shauna is a genius. Shauna got accepted to Brown, like standing up for his wife. It's like,
Yes.
this makes me wonder, is Jeff cheating on Shauna? Because I think Jeff is very in love with
He's
this
not.
woman.
Yeah, I know. I like your theory about him planning the big anniversary, at the hotel where I told you maybe he's seeing a therapist on his own. But regardless, I never saw him as cheating on her.
Yeah.
So, and the way that he stood up here just made me really know that I have a lot of crazy theories and I'm reading into everything. But the one thing that I feel the most certain about is that Jeff is not cheating. And this, like, the way that he stood up for her really, really solidified in my brain that I don't think Jeff is cheating on Shauna.
Yeah. And I think that, and they were serving them tuna quiche for brunch. Like, that's just passive aggressive.
No, that's completely ridiculous. I was like, really? That's the choice? And
Yeah.
the way that he says this is the best tuna quiche I ever had after he makes it so awkward. Beautifully done scene.
Yeah, it was very nice. So we go from this to Travis in the cabin, and Coach Ben is like, hey, you and Natalie, cool. We don't need any babies around here. Little does he know. But then proceeds to hand Travis the largest handful of condoms I've ever seen in my life, outside of like a Planned Parenthood clinic.
And Travis said, we were only going to be in Seattle for 2 days. Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that. There's like the little humor moments on this show are done just so well, almost like tasteful. You know what I mean? Where you're just like, okay, that's funny. You have to laugh. How many chicks did he think he was gonna get with in Seattle in 2 days?
Well, there is a theory, and I don't know where this comes from. Well, I know where this comes from. So in the original pilot script, which we haven't talked about yet, I almost want to do a separate episode just about the original script versus what they shot. But in the original script, Coach Ben was bisexual and actually had a boyfriend. So some people have taken this online and said, well, we think that because Travis doesn't like his father, Coach Martinez, maybe Coach Martinez was having an affair. Maybe he was having an affair with Coach Ben. Like, I think that's just really taking the ball and running with it.
Oh.
But possible.
Okay, yeah, that's extreme, but I can see that. Right,
The other theory,
okay,
and,
I
oh my
haven't
God,
read that one yet.
This is going to get Coach Ben castrated if this is true, is that Coach Ben does not have a moral or legal compass or sense of right and wrong. And Coach Ben is hooking up with another member of the team. And if Misty were to catch them doing that, like, yeah, he's gonna die the worst. Like, he'll wish he was been poisoned by mushrooms if that was the case. But it still is a mystery. Why did Coach Ben have more condoms on him than I think, certainly I bought in my teenage years. This was very.
But imagine being stranded in the woods. Like, imagine being stranded in the woods. You have no food, no medication, no batteries for your radio, but there's enough condoms for everyone.
Okay.
Imagine that's the silver lining of your tragedy.
Actually, let me prepare this. This is going to be the clip that goes out. If I'm Coach Ben, if I'm Coach Ben and I'm stuck in the woods and I've got an entire like fishbowl's worth of condoms with me, all these condoms that I'm in the woods with and that I have no need for, here's what I'm doing with them. I am making SOS balloons out of the condoms and I'm writing notes on them and I'm going to release them into the air to float away and hopefully find us help. That is my plan.
Yes.
So Coach Ben is dooming them.
I love it. I think that's an amazing plan. Or use the balloons, like go crazy and use them to try to lift the plane. I don't know.
Take the balloon, write a note on it, or better yet, put a note inside the condom and float it in the lake or the river. And see if it gets to civilization and help comes.
Yeah, and write "Pop Me" on it. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Because you're right. People might see and they're like, "Oh, what's with this inflated condom floating in the river?" But if they see there's a note in there,
right?
I mean, Coach Ben.
Yeah, because I gotta tell you, I personally would not run to inflated condom and try to grab it and see what's up with it.
It's true, but this could be the one time, you know? Look, all
Right.
I'm
So
saying is
forget messages in a bottle. We're going to start sending notes in a condom.
everybody write a letter to Showtime asking them to renew Yellowjackets for the full 5 seasons and mail it inside an inflated condom. I beg of you. No, I mean, this is kind of silly, but if I'm trapped in the woods and I'm thinking about all my options for survival, I'm sorry, like make a raft, inflate the condoms and put some sticks over it, like float down the lake or the river, float on the condoms until you reach civilization.
I don't know about that, Glenn, but you know what? You got to think of everything.
He had so many condoms, you could have made a raft enough to carry the entire team and their gear on a raft made of those inflated condoms.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. There's enough. There's definitely enough.
Definitely enough. I'm just saying, safe sex is very important. I encourage him wanting to prevent pregnancy in the woods, but Ben, come on, like think about this, coach. You could have been rescued, by episode 8 if you only would have pursued this. So we have Taissa can't get the money. Natalie sells her Porsche to get the 50 grand. Kevin shows up to see her and then gives her a ride back and then takes Natalie to a soccer game. Like, this was kind of nice.
Yes, I love this thing as well.
Kevin's child playing soccer, Natalie giving soccer advice. Like, we got to see a Natalie that we haven't really seen present day in this scene.
Yeah, I absolutely love this thing. I love giving the kid the advice because you get so caught up in all the drama and everything that they're dealing with that you forget that these girls are, state champions at soccer. So they must have been really, really good at what they did. In addition to that, I just wanted to share a theory of mine that when Shauna did the Google search earlier on and we see that there's like the lawsuit against the plane company, it really made me wonder about Natalie and her financial status. Because if you go by the story that they're telling you, they kind of like tell you that she was on rehab or she was heavy on drugs after she was rescued, but we see her get out of an extremely fancy rehab out in LA and she has this Porsche in storage. So don't you wonder how she was able to afford all of these things or all the drugs that she did? So that's my theory.
It was said that Ty paid for the rehab. Probably as a condition because maybe Natalie, when Natalie was effed up, she was talking too much and Ty was like, I got to get you clean to protect my candidates. But no, I 100% agree. She bought that Porsche with her settlement money. I'm 100% with you there.
Right. And the drugs that she was doing, because drugs are not cheap. And, she ended up on a rehab and it sounds like it was a serious problem for her. So
no, absolutely.
Just a theory.
No, I agree with you 100%. And I love that the show can kind of seed something like that. They don't need to tell us. We can do the math.
Right.
So Jeff is reassuring Shauna on the car ride back, saying, like, I want to be with you. I chose to be with you. I've built a life with you. Man, like, I want to marry Jeff after this. This is where I'm like, dude ain't cheating, man.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't want to marry Jeff? And she's cheating on him.
And I think that's the other reason why Jeff's not cheating on her is because if I'm writing a show about a complicated character like Shauna, who Melanie Lynskey plays with all these different layers, she needs to make bad decisions because it can't just be so convenient that she cheated on her husband. Oh, her husband's cheating on her. This has to be someone who was confronted with wrong evidence, jumped to a conclusion, and then made a bad decision, and then has to pick up the pieces. That makes way more sense to me than, oh, well, they're both terrible people.
Yes, agreed. But I thought this show really, really developed Jeff as a character, or at least made you sympathize with him, start liking him, root for him. Like, Jeff turned a corner in this show, especially in that lunch scene and then in the car when he's like, I never wondered. I want you to know that I never wondered or what if I would have married Jackie. And I think that's something that probably was in her brain for the last, how many years has it been? So it must have felt great to hear, even though she's, cheating on him.
There is something interesting about that. I mean, I think about a lot. about different chapters of my life and things that went how I wanted them to go and things that didn't go the way I wanted them to go. And it's funny. I mean, my wife and I have been together 17 years, but we talk about the 90s or, when I was doing music or when I was doing different endeavors. And you do that math where you say, well, if life had gone differently, we wouldn't have ever met, let alone ended up together. And it is interesting because when I talk about that, I almost feel like I have to make it clear, like, sure, I wonder about what would have happened, but I'm very happy with the way my life turned out. And if I had to do it over, I would not do it any other way. And so I really thought it was beautiful for Jeff to give Shauna that comfort here, knowing that this was his choice, all things considered. I thought this was such a well-written scene and so well acted that, it's like, dude, like, yeah, I'll marry Jeff. He's fantastic.
Yeah, he was great. And this episode was really, really a turnaround for me with Jeff.
Yeah, he seemed like maybe in hindsight, like he was just guilty of disinterest. And I hope we're not wrong. I hope that it does turn out to be that Jeff is a stand-up guy doing the best that he can. Okay, so very powerful scene in the episode. I know there's some big reveals and stuff we're going to talk about, but we have to talk about Taissa finding the underwire missing from the bra. Shauna's went off in the woods alone with the wire. I mean, just talk about a tough scene to watch where Shauna decides that she wants to end this pregnancy because she doesn't want Jackie to find out that she's pregnant with Jeff's baby. Your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, this was tough to watch. This was very, very tough to watch and powerful at the same time. I guess that Taissa knew right away what was going on, even though she made Shauna promise her that she wouldn't do that, and she still was there for her, and she went in. I mean, we know that Shauna asked for her assistance and she tries, and then she says, I can't do it, and they hug, and it was such a gory, powerful, painful scene to watch. I thought it was, I don't know, probably one of the heaviest. And I know that we're talking about people cannibalism, this and that, but I thought for me, this was one of the heaviest scenes.
No, I mean, this was real. Like, I mean, I was crying during this scene because I think, it comes against a time in society where we're seeing women's reproductive rights and their ability to choose and take control and autonomy over their own body and reproductive decisions. I mean, that's under threat. And I think, more so than ever before. I mean, it's been under threat since Roe versus Wade. But I think that this really underscored how when you feel you have no options and you literally are willing to risk your life to end a pregnancy, just what a dangerous situation we're putting women in. And this was, you're right. Against the context of this show, this was like a shockingly heavy and poignant scene that, I don't know how you can watch this and not feel just like scared for Shauna, just anger that, the fact that there are women who are not stuck in the woods that feel that if they don't have safe and legal access to abortion, that this might be a route that is their only option available to them. I mean, this was so powerful and just really speaks to, even against the most extreme and fantastic circumstances, you can still tell a very real and relevant story.
Yes, and that, like I said, I think it was the heaviest for me to watch and understand and get through, regardless of all the context and things that we're seeing. Supernatural cannibalism, I felt this was as heavy as it got so far for me.
Yeah, and I think that, credit to Sophie Nélisse, who plays Shauna, young Shauna in this, and just what she's experienced there. She ultimately decides not to go through with it because of the pain. When Taissa is helping her and decides, she's going to figure something out from there. But yeah, I mean, this is just removed from the greater mythology and everything else we said. This is easily one of the most powerful scenes I've ever seen on television, let alone this year. And it was just so well done.
Same. Same.
Concurrent with this, Lottie has decided that she wants to accept Christ and ask Laura Lee for help. He gets baptized, and we had this wonderful homage, as many people have pointed out, this wonderful homage to Wes Craven in A Nightmare on Elm Street, with Lottie falling in the water and then waking up in this boiler room or bunker and going and seeing these lit candles and having this very powerful vision when she comes to of seeing Laura Lee's face by the sun. And then almost an explosion behind Laura Lee and Laura Lee's face fading to black. What did you think of this sequence of Lottie's encounter with the Holy Spirit?
I thought it was very, very visually strong and very, very well made. I love the visuals here, the candles, even the choice that they went with her attire. Again, I think that I really want people to watch this show because I feel like I have so much respect for the attention to detail that they pay on everything that they do. And this is one of those things that I was like, wow, I could have not wrote this more perfect, or there's nothing that I would have changed about the way that they did this scene.
And the vision was so beautifully shot. It was so well
Yes.
done. And yeah, I worry because I really like Lottie as a character and I'm really invested in her journey. But now it's like Lottie is the person that's there to tell us and warn us against everything bad that's going to happen.
Right, right. And the fact that not to talk about the scene and how the production value of it, but the psychology behind it is that I can't help but to think how desperate is she without her medicines, and because she never understood what her powers really are, that at this point she feels like, hey, Laura Lee, I need to accept religion into my life because that might be the only way to save me, because nobody ever let her explore what it is that her gift is. And you can't help but to think, she feels like this is her only solution right now because she never understood what it is that she has and how to handle it or control it. She
I
has to
think
be going crazy.
No, absolutely. Well, I mean, for me, look, I think it would have been, forget the plane crash. I would have think it would have been, the first serious bout of turbulence where I would be open to accepting all religious influence into my life, given how harrowing and intense and extreme that situation was. I would have been asking Laura Lee,
Right.
like, hey, I was raised Jewish, but can we do a Jew for Jesus thing here? Can you convert me? Can we make something happen before we hit the ground and die? Just want to make
Right.
sure I'm good. But no, I think, in seriousness, though, here's the other thing I like is that Laura Lee is played a little bit as the Christian girl for laughs, as, oh, this
Right.
overly religious type. Isn't it funny that she really believes this and religion is hokey? And I like the idea that they're giving her, they're making her to a real person and making her beliefs be something that are more accepted and more open. And she's just not this character that's here that we're supposed to sort of giggle at her hokiness. I like that they're having Lottie come around to this, and through that being able to have like a really respectful representation of spirituality.
Yes, agreed. And in the earlier episode when Jackie makes them line up and say something nice to each other, and she starts, the thing that she says to Laura Lee, and you can tell that she means it, is, I really respect and admire your faith. So
Yeah.
I do think that they make their jokes here and there, but I think that they're all very respectful in what she believes in, and you can see them kind of like take part in, before they start their practice before national. Remember, she wants to say a prayer and everybody just kind of like bows down their head and let her say her prayer. So I do think that the team is supportive of her of her faith and beliefs.
No, absolutely. Then we have more scenes of Natalie making Travis a better young man. As
Yes.
they were about to have sex, now that Travis has condoms, he asks, and like I'm just cringing at this, like cringing to like my lesser moments teenage self, where asking her how many guys she's been with, and then him really revealing that his insecurity is because he's a virgin. I mean, this was such a real scene, and I love how Natalie schooled him for
Yes,
essentially
the
slut
vagina
shaming him.
monologues. The
Yes.
vagina monologues. I mentioned that yesterday. That scene stuck with me. I would also marry this scene. I thought this was great. And I thought that because I feel like now it's easier for women to stand up and say, hey, slut shaming is bullshit. But to see them also have somebody kind of like standing up and saying that back in 1996, when maybe I don't want to say it was okay to do it, but not a lot of people were standing up for women. When this will happen, this thing was magical, in my opinion.
Well, and in fact, I like that it was very real. Again, looking at the 90s, looking at my teenage years through the lens of a 45-year-old now, in present day,
Right.
it's like so much of male behavior and terrible male behavior comes from a place of insecurity. And it's
Yes.
entirely what you see Travis portraying
Yes.
here, because
Hmm.
he's not experienced. He's afraid that she's more experienced. He's afraid how he's going to measure up. He's going to afraid what does it mean. Like he's
Right.
processing all of these insecurities and taking it out on her. And I just think, again, this is so well written and so well done. And credit to both actors in this scene and what they brought to this performance, because it was
Yeah, and I can totally understand where Travis is coming from with his insecurities. It was just the way that he worded that. Instead of just, it's easier to just say, hey, I'm inexperienced and I'm nervous than saying, how many people have you been with? You know what I mean? And yes, that is so cringy when you think about it now, right?
It is. And I think that there's nothing wrong with two people having an honest conversation, particularly when it relates to risk and safe sex and things like that. But then at the same time, I kind of talk about like just a night and day difference. You think about how the movie Clerks sort of underscored male insecurity and that you want to know, but you really don't want to know. So just don't fucking say anything, or Chasing Amy even to the nth degree. But this was like just a very mature scene that, I wish I could have been exposed to media like this as a teenager, because I think that it promotes such healthy discussion and positive views and relevancy around, both male and female attitudes towards sex.
Agreed. Couldn't have said it better.
Sophie Thatcher, by the way, shout out for playing teenage Natalie. And did just a very good job. And Kevin Alves as Travis, who I think it must be a tough role where it's like you're going to play the shithead guy who wants to become a better man. But he's doing this well, and you get the sense that he is learning and growing and evolving. So I really like that.
Yes.
This was kind of a light Misty episode, but what we got from her, probably the lightest Misty episode since the pilot.
Yes.
But what we got from her was putting something in a syringe, calling up Jessica Roberts and saying, okay, I want to work with you, let's meet. We get Shauna. This is what it's weird. Jeff was so cool in this episode, but he's saying, hey, I have to go into the store, inventory issues. Shauna's getting these texts from Adam, who's acting way too thirsty. Like, Shauna is not encouraging this. And after this, Shauna then saying, okay, 45 minutes. I want you naked, lying face down. Maybe I'll be there. Maybe I won't. With Adam in these texts.
Yes.
Absolutely crazy. Jeff goes off to the store. So I'll just call this out now. And I think this is what we're about to see in this episode that we're going to watch for the first time in 1 hour, shortly after we finish this podcast. I think Shauna is going to go over there, see Adam face down, and she's going to see his back tattoo and the questions she is going to have as it relates to who he is and what is his interest in her.
I love this theory. I saw somebody grab a screenshot. I don't know if it was from the trailer. I'm sure you've seen it. The one of her holding the knife. Have you seen that screenshot?
I did, yes. We'll find out. We will find out what happens.
I think you're right. Yeah, we'll find out. I don't know, but I'm very curious to see where this goes.
And speaking of things I'm curious to see where it goes, Misty, Jessica Roberts getting into her car. Misty injects her almost immediately. Jessica Roberts wakes up like handcuffed to the bed, duct tape mouth. Misty saying, good night, sleep tight. Don't let the fact you're a horrible person keep you up at night. Like, shit is about to, I'm episode 7. Like, I don't want to have too lofty of expectations, but oh my God, is some shit about to happen in episode 7 based on how we ended episode 6.
Okay, but do you think that Misty kidnapped the reporter because she knows that the other women think the reporter is the person blackmailing them and Misty's actually the person doing it? Or B, because she wants to be one step ahead of them?
I think Misty wants information to give her power within the team dynamic so they will accept her.
Right. Okay.
And I don't want to give short shift to these theories, but part of me is like, we're going to know very soon what happens. So it's like, I'm almost too speculative on it. We go back to the woods. Natalie and Travis do bring back a deer. This is the deer with the bloody horn. So Lottie is not insane. And immediately when they go to cut it open, Coach Ben explains that is a process. Deer shed their horns. Like, that's natural. Yeah. Like, the deer should be fine, but they cut it open. Maggots all inside the deer. Everyone says, well, I'm not eating that. I do feel like I should point out, I did get How to Survive in the Woods and How to Eat in the Woods. Maggots are an excellent source of protein. They can absolutely eat the maggots and survive on them. Not appetizing. I see the face you're making. But Just saying, like, the maggots are probably better to eat than whatever's wrong with the deer that caused this infestation. I'm sure we'll find out more about the lack of food in the coming episodes.
Yeah.
We do see Natalie in bed with Travis. We see the text, drop the money off tonight. And then who gets the text about drop the money off? I'm sorry, we skipped this earlier, but Lottie in Is It a Vision or Is It Real did see Taissa paying off to the dirty fingernails, saw Taissa in 1996 digging up and eating dirt. And we're sort of left to wonder, like, was that real or was Lottie seeing things? But we know now from the deer that Lottie, absolutely, her visions are quite often real. And if you wondered if that was real or not, we see adult Taissa getting a text while Taissa is out in the tree. Looks like she ate her hand and is digging in the dirt. What do you make of this reveal that Taissa is the lady in the tree that Sammy's been seeing all this time and has the same, perhaps dissociative or similar dissociative disorder to what Sammy was diagnosed with early in the episode, driven by stress?
I screamed. I was watching this late at night and I freaking screamed at this whole sequence. For some reason, I wasn't surprised. It was just a shocking element. Like the part of the hand that appeared to be missing, she's eating the dirt, the way that it was like produced and shown, it was so powerful. Her hair is messy. And you're used to seeing adult Taissa so put together. Maybe it's because she's running, she's having she's into politics now. I don't know what it is, but she always looks so put together and she always tries so hard to come off 100% perfect. Then seeing this side of her was just like a complete shock. And I don't know what to think other than the fact that the first thing that hit me was that you're the one torturing your own kid and you probably don't even realize it. And you're the reason why Sammy is the way that he is. And it was just, the best way that I can describe this is one of those, the mind-blown emoji at this whole sequence. But at the same time, it's like, why is she this extreme and the other ones aren't? Or are we not seeing how far out the other ones go? Because we do see Taissa eating dirt in 1996, and now we see this. We also see how good Shauna got at hunting or whatever, and then we see her kill that rabbit in her in her yard. So maybe they're all affected differently. But this was one of the biggest holy shit moments that I've had so far in this series.
Well, so we've had people speculate that this is, again, similar to Lottie being on an antipsychotic medicine and having that suppressed visions. People are speculating that Taissa, this behavior is rooted in a disorder called pica, which is craving and chewing substances that have no nutritional value, such as ice, clay, soil, or paper. So it seems like they're drawing on something real here. But yeah, her disassociation, you think about her grandmother, you think about Sammy, like there is some sort of generational trauma or condition that she is dealing with here from the disassociation, and the eating the dirt is a symptom of that.
I love that point that you just made because I have anemia. My iron is always very low, and I have a thing where I eat ice all the time. I put ice in all my drinks and I eat, and I can't help it. It's just I crave it and it's something that I do. And my dad used to pick on me when I was little, but he was like, "Don't eat ice. Why do you do that?" Blah blah blah. And then I found out as an adult, which I still throw my dad's face every chance that I get, that is because of my iron deficiency that happens to me. And the doctor told me, "You're lucky. What you crave is ice." That's when he started telling me there's people out there eating dirt or clay or like chalk, and I'm like, ew, So it's funny because I even have something similar to that, and I didn't put two and two together.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's where the creators of the show are very smart, is they're taking real things.
You're right.
So it kind of comes back to our question of like, is this so supernatural? Well, I think the best science fiction and the best horror are often things that are based, that are one or two steps removed from reality, but we're not completely making something up.
Right, but there was a little bit of like an evilness in the way that she's eating this dirt compared to where you look at the people that have these similar conditions. They just eat it normally. There's no such thing. And why did she eat her hand? Like, I don't know. I'm just
there's like a feral disassociation. No, and it is I mean,
Right.
it is creepy. I'm not saying the disorder, I mean, that's real, obviously.
Right.
People deal with that, but they're portraying it in a way where she's
Yeah.
almost possessed, and there's something else going on there, and that's what makes, I mean, this scene, like, I was like, this show has such a good mood, but like this, I was more scared by this than the Man with No Eyes reveal, like, because this is Taissa, this character we know who's going through this,
Yes, and I think she's like, I don't know. I don't think the Man with No Eyes or the Man in the Woods is nearly as scary as this reveal about Taissa. Not even near it.
Yeah. So man, what an episode! Like, just to come to this end, and we've got Insane. What's Misty going to do next? What's going on with Shauna and Adam? What's going on with Taissa? What's going on back in the woods where now, I mean, they're seeing like they can't eat, like starvation is looming. They're very hungry and animals are becoming few and far between. Like,
yeah,
I'm excited about episode 7. And I have to say, like, I'm excited that we can talk about episode 7 and not have to worry about spoiling future episodes. I know we've gone very long tonight because there's a lot to talk about, but I think we're still going to have longer episodes because we're going to be free to speculate more, only covering one episode per podcast episode going forward.
Right. I'm glad that we're finally caught up, and I'm glad that now we'll be able to talk about them when they come out. And that way we can spend some time recapping, but also kind of like conspiring and coming up with our theories, or even sharing the good theories we run into reading things online.
Yeah, absolutely. So we made it. We're caught up. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Episode 7 is about to air. We're going to tomorrow do our reaction to that. And then every week, probably every Sunday, we'll be putting out a new episode to correspond with the new episode that's debuting. We'll be watching it on demand the night before, and so we can get it out on Sunday. And if you have emails, theories, things you want to send them to us, yellowjacketsbuzz@gmail.com. You could tweet at us. Issa's at NYC Demon Diva. That's Diva with a 1. I'm at Glenn Rubenstein. Love to hear from you, your theories. Hope you're enjoying the podcast. Isa, thank you so much. We're there. We're over the mountain. We're into the thick of it now. And I'm looking forward to continuing this journey with you. And we're going to have some guests coming up as well. So it'll be exciting.
Yes, I'm excited too. I'm excited because now I'll be able to like get this together, and by the time I'm done sending you all the files, it'll be time to watch the new episode.
I know.
So I'm so excited.
Cool. Well, look for that.
Thank you so much, Glenn.
Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll catch you back here next time on Yellowjackets Buzz. Take care.
Bye.